Why do some scripts just feel so valuable? You see, we all know the feeling. You click on a video and a few minutes into it, you're completely captivated. You feel like you've known a creator for years and somehow the video feels 10 times more valuable than anything else you've watched before. To figure out how, I spent the last 6 months analyzing and reverse engineering those exact scripts. And what I've noticed is that those creators aren't using better tips or more value. They're just using psychology triggers that nobody really seems to talk about. And so after trying to implement those psychology triggers in my and my clients' content for months, I now got it down to kind of a science that works pretty much every time, no matter the niche. So in this video, I'm going to reveal what makes scripts convert and my own framework to why scripts so good viewers actually buy from me. Okay, first we need to understand what actually makes a good script. You see, most creators are optimizing for the wrong metrics. They are chasing views and trying to give as much free value as possible, but none of that really pays the bills. And I should be the one knowing it. 2 years ago, I was going viral on almost every single video. I got thousands of views and followers, but I barely made any money. Because I was making content that was helpful. Tutorials, step-by-step guides, quick tips that people could implement right away. But here's what I didn't understand back then. Conversion doesn't really come from value. It comes from how you package that value. I did know that how you structure your content, how you position yourselves, the stories you tell, the examples you use, that's what's actually driving conversion. I thought that giving good value would automatically bring me in good clients, but the best value in the world is useless if packaging is off. Because what makes a script convert comes down to 3 things: how much trust, connection, and authority you build. I'm going to give you my framework that makes incorporating these 3 metrics into your content effortless, but let me quickly explain you what we're actually optimizing for. To build trust, you need to make your value stick. It's about presenting your value in a way that makes the viewer remember you as the source who provided the information. And the way you do that is by using the right storytelling structure and strategically placing your key takeaways. Because when people implement your advice and get results from it, they then attribute that success back to you. Then you also need to build connection with the viewer, because people don't just buy solutions to their problems randomly. Think about it, there are probably hundreds of other offers similar to yours, and so people buy from people they can relate and feel most connected to. That means you need to tell personal stories, examples, and moments where you show that you were exactly where the viewer is right now. And finally, there's authority. Proof that you can actually deliver what you're promising. And this is pretty straightforward. It comes from client results, transformations, and examples of your work in action. Authority is what shortcuts decision making, because it gives the viewer the confidence that it will also work for them. But this is also the part where most people screw up. You know, I see this so much, people just listing out their achievements without any context to build social proof, and then they wonder why their content feels salesy. The secret here is that you need to incorporate your social proof into your content so naturally that it doesn't come across as bragging at all. And there's a very simple way to do this, which I'm gonna show you in just a second. So every line of your script should serve at least one of these 3 metrics. If it doesn't build trust, create connection, or establish authority, you can just leave it out. Because when you hit on these 3 metrics, your videos kind of become like mini sales reps that work for you 24/7. Every person who watches is really getting taken through the same psychology journey that a sales conversation would create. And when that happens, your content will actually start to sell and not just get attention. Perfect. Now that we know what actually makes a good script, we need to talk about how to actually write one. Now, everybody always talks about how important the intro is, and they're absolutely right. Your intro is crucial because if you can't make viewers stay, the rest of your video becomes essentially useless. But intros isn't where conversion happens. You know, they're actually pretty straightforward. They really only need to do 3 things: hook the viewer, introduce the general subject, and give them a reason to stay. And honestly, there are already plenty of videos out there that are teaching you how to write good intros. But when it comes to the body, everybody just always says the same stupid things. Just teach people what you know, or give away as much valuable information as possible. But as we saw in part 1, this approach completely drops conversion. So your typical talking head video normally follows this flow: intro, point 1 to 3, or how many you need depending on the video, and an outro. And what most people miss is that each individual part of the body needs to do more than just deliver information. Because every point is really an opportunity to build trust, connection, and authority simultaneously. So instead of just saying here's point 1, here's point 2, etc., each point should be like a mini story in and of itself, strategically crafted to move someone closer to wanting to work with you. And so, as I told you in the intro, over the past few months I've been analyzing the biggest creators and writing scripts for myself and my clients. And by doing so, I've developed a pretty reliable framework that I now use all the time. Now, of course, like with any framework, it has to be adjusted depending on the situation, but it will give you a pretty solid storytelling foundation, all by hitting on the 3 conversion metrics. And to show you how this framework applies in real time, I'll show you one of the scripts I wrote for my client Joey as an example. So let's break this down. So when I write scripts for clients, I always pretty much write out the intro and the outro, and then for the part of the body, sometimes like here, I leave out some parts to let the client improvise because it's specific knowledge that only he has, and I can't do it justice by writing it out for him. And so this script is about how Joey built a 300k per year IG personal brand. So part 1 of the body is how he does his marketing, so which content he posts to attract ready-to-buy customers. Then the second part is how he then converts this attention into actual customers for his business. And part 3 is about the fulfillment, so how he provides his services in a way that is sustainable for him and makes his business actually a freedom business. That's kind of the overall topic of the script. And so the framework is built out of 8 parts, and as I said, I always adjust or put things together depending on the situation, but it gives me the general feeling and structure of each point of the body. And so the first sentence of every point of the body is introducing the general topic of that point. So as you can see, for part 1 about marketing, the sentence is just, okay, let's start with marketing. Or in part 2 about conversion, the sentence is, okay, let's move to actually closing your leads. Yeah, there's no need to overcomplicate it. It's just a simple sentence that lets the viewer know a new part has begun, which then also helps keeping track of the entire video. Next, you need to immediately explain why the point matters in the global story. It should be a bold statement, something that rehooks and makes the viewer want to hear what you have to say. Something controversial or something that goes against common beliefs. So if, for example, in part 1, the sentence I used is, I scaled my entire business to over 30k per month all through one Instagram account and without ever running ads. And this is a bold statement because normally you don't get those kind of results without ads, right? It serves the purpose of opening a new loop because after something controversial is said, the viewer is gonna think, okay, that's weird, why does he say that? To give you another example, in part 2, I used, now conversion is where all the trust and connection you've built through your content is either validated or killed. Because most creators destroy this fear without even realizing it. So now in the viewer's mind, he's gonna think, is that my case? And if so, if you actually target the right audience, normally that's the case, he's gonna want to know how he can improve his situation and his conversion. So yeah, all in all, it has to give a good reason to stay through the entire point and wait for the payoff. Step 3 is your first argument. Now this is your main storytelling element that proves why your bold statement is true. What I call a storytelling element is a narrative device that makes your point more engaging and memorable. For example, the ones I use the most are personal stories, a scientific study that provides credible proof, a metaphor that makes complex ideas simple, a thought experiment using imagery that helps them visualize, or relatable examples that make them think, that's exactly my situation. So it always depends on each individual point, but it has to support the bold statement you just made and build up more tension to the payoff. The goal with the argument is to make your point stick, all by giving proof that your value actually works. And so depending on which storytelling element you choose, you can target the 3 conversion metrics we talked about before. So for example, here in part 1, I decided to incorporate Joey's personal story to build connection with the viewer. Or in part 2, I choose to illustrate the viewer's current situation to show that Joey understands their problems and struggles, which then builds even more trust and connection. Or here in part 3, I illustrated Joey's vision of the current market, which shows that he understands it very well, which then builds authority. When I'm writing scripts, I always try to use different types of arguments to ensure that I hit on the 3 conversion metrics equally. So trust, connection and authority. So yeah, as I said, the argument has to support the bold statement you just made and give credibility that your methods, your systems, and what you will then say in the payoff actually works. Step 4 is the second argument, but it doesn't always have to be another argument. It could be something completely different or could be left out entirely. For example, it could be social proof that shows that your argument actually works in real life scenarios, or triggering the viewer's pain points that show that you understand their situation even more, explaining the benefits of implementing the tip, describing what they are currently doing wrong, or really whatever else is needed to support that point even more. This step is very flexible. Sometimes you need to dig deeper into their pain points so they feel the urgency. Sometimes you need to show that you understand their exact situation even more. And sometimes you need to make the value more valuable by adding some context or proof. So if, for example, in part 2, I use imagery to support the point even more. Actually, this is kind of more argument 2 and this is kind of more argument 1, but yeah, the script is very flexible. As I said, the framework can be adapted depending on the situation. In part 3, I used Joey's personal story again to dig deeper into the viewer's pain points. And in part 1, I straight up just gave examples in form of social proof. And this is a very powerful tool which I touched a bit on earlier, which is to use social proof as arguments and examples. Because when you use your social proof as examples and as support for why your point is true, it doesn't come across as bragging and it builds immense amounts of authority. I even clarified it here with this sentence, and I'm not showing you this to sell you my offer, but rather to show you how possible it is for for anyone to attract their dream clients, even without getting massive amounts of views. But yeah, it's very difficult to tell you exactly which arguments you need to use because it's very depending on the context. So if you have any questions, you can just write a comment and make my best to respond to you. Now, step 5 of the framework is your payoff, your value, your advice. The goal here is to give them something concrete, something they can implement immediately. So for example, in part 1 about marketing, the payoff is Joey explaining exactly what content the viewer needs to post. In part 3 about fulfillment, it's the 4 rules he always keeps in mind to make his fulfillment sustainable and actually build a freedom business. So the payoff is the main value of the point, what the viewer wants to know, what will actually give them results when implementing it. And so it shows how to achieve the bold statements you made before, and it closes the tension and the loop. Now, step 6 of the framework is a quick argument of why implementing the payoff works so well. It's just a quick proof that makes the viewer go, yeah, I should really try this. So if, for example, in part 1, after telling the viewer what content I need to post, I wrote, this approach works so well because when you focus on connection over views, you also attract the people who are actually ready to buy, not casual viewers. This just reinforces the value and makes the benefits crystal clear. In part 2 about conversion, I actually used an interview that Joey did with one of his clients where she explains how implementing this value that I explained just above and how it helped her. Now, I put step 7 and 8 sometimes even in one sentence, but it's recapping the main takeaway in one small sentence and zooming back out to the main storyline. Giving a quick recap ensures that the viewer remembers the core message of the point, which then helps with the trust building. The goal is to create a memorable anchor that they can remember and reference later. So for example, in part 1, I used marketing my content with antiviral videos that only attract my dream clients. That recaps the main message of the point. Then step 8, zooming back out, connects the point you just made to the bigger story and transitions to the next section smoothly. The purpose is to maintain narrative flow and show how each piece fits together into the entire video. It's always just a small sentence that signals that the point is finished. For example, here in part 1, I just put, that's the first component of the freedom business model. So that's the framework I use all the time for every single point of the body. And this framework works because you're delivering value all by creating connection, establishing credibility, and motivating people to take action. Essentially, it does everything you need to actually convert people. But instead of feeling like a pitch, it feels like and actually is teaching and giving value. That's why this approach works at such better rate than just listing tips. You're not just educating anymore, you're systematically building the case of why someone should work with you. Most creators think that conversion is about having the perfect hook or the flashiest thumbnails. But the real issue is deeper. They're treating their content like Wikipedia articles instead of applying this conversion packaging to their value. Every line of your script should build trust, connection, or authority, or it shouldn't exist. Most creators out there are optimizing for the wrong metrics, chasing views, likes, or comments, and wondering why no one ends up converting. So if you're one of these creators, or you simply want someone to take care of all of your YouTube content for you, you can schedule a call with the first link in the description. I'll show you exactly what your scripts might be missing and how you could improve them. So I'm excited to chat with you soon if that's something you're looking for, but if not, I hope you enjoyed this video and I'll see you in the next one. By the way, if you like this video, you can watch this one next. I think you'll like it as well.